It's very difficult for a band to release a perfect album, and I think it's a little bit harder for a band to release a good album after a good album after a good album. Some bands have done that before, but most of the time, some bands just have that one album or a couple albums that are just pretty bad. That's exactly what I'm going to be talking about in this video, bad albums by great bands. Before I jump into the whole video, please like and subscribe. That would help me out a bunch. And if you want, you can click the bell notification. You will get alerted whenever I release a new video. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the video. Now, I'm gonna be honest, on my list I do have some bad albums, but I don't think they're like the worst thing in existence. There's some positives within that bad album, and you know, it's just my point of view, my opinion. But there's also those albums where I'm like, geez man, this is just pretty bad. Wait, before I get into it, I know a lot of people know that there's bad albums and people talk about it online, and I'm not like this wicked professional musician. I know that, but I can talk about music just like you can talk about music, but I'm doing it on my channel, so do whatever you want, judge me, whatever, my opinion. Okay, that's all. Now, this first album is actually just a solo artist, but this man was in a legendary grunge band, Soundgarden, and I'm talking about Chris Cornell and his album, Euphoria Morning. This is one of those albums where I'm like, man, this is pretty freaking bad, and if you're a fan of Chris Cornell and you just want to hear his voice, I totally understand that. This is the album for you. Beautiful, beautiful voice. I'm not taking that away from him. Legend that graced this beautiful, beautiful world we live in. And this was like his first album, I believe, where he was doing some solo work after Soundgarden broke up in the mid 90s. So he dropped this album in 1999. And the way I look at it and the way I interpret this whole album, it's just like he's trying to sound a little bit like Jeff Buckley, and obviously two great singers, two very different singers. Jeff Buckley had this little bit higher pitched type of tone, but not getting too crazy into the details. When I listened to this album, I was like, wow, it feels very heavily influenced by Jeff Buckley, and you know what? That's not a bad influence to have whatsoever. Love me some Jeff Buckley, but to me, it was kind of poorly executed. Everything just seemed very off. It didn't seem like we were getting a full, honest batch of music from Chris Cornell. Not my favorite material from the legend Chris Cornell, but it is what it is. That's just how I feel. I know I just talked about Oasis in my last video, and I'm going to talk about Oasis again and very quick. But I'm talking about Oasis's entire album releases after their second album, just pure badness. I don't want to say completely garbage because that would be not truthful for the audience that I'm speaking to right now, but nothing really memorable after their first two albums, and that's a shame, man. Very talented people, very talented songwriters, and it's just like, man, you couldn't make more than two albums. I don't want to dive into it too much. I used to be in love with Oasis and, you know, Liam Gallagher, everybody in Oasis, but those days have changed, and yeah, my opinion on that will never change probably. Let's move on to the band Sonic Youth and their Washing Machine album. Very popular bands have popular logos, and you could just identify from very far away, like Nirvana, Guns N' Roses, and Sonic Youth, whenever I think about them, I think about their washing machine image or logo, and it's a great logo. I love that. Very simplistic, but it's very fire. But speaking about the album, oh my god, dude, I cannot get into this album whatsoever. And it is a damn shame because this logo rocks. I know it's, like I said, very simple, but it's so fire, and it's Sonic Youth. It's a washing machine. When I listen to the whole album, it really just feels like a bunch of throwaway songs, like songs they've had in a vault for a long time, and we're just like, you know what, let's get it out the way. Oh my god, I am not a fan of this album at all, and I am a fan of Sonic Youth. I will admit there's weird moments with their music where it's like, okay, a person who listens to Sonic Youth for the first time probably wouldn't like that, but I'm totally into every weird thing they got going on. But on this particular album, it's just not working at all. I mean, the worst song on here, Panty Lies, I mean, bro, just listen to that song, and that's pretty much like how this whole album is. It's pretty bad. I mean, I love Sonic Youth, so I feel like I can, I guess, bash them. I'm not really bashing them, I'm just, you know, giving my opinion. But man, I wish this album was much more than it is, or really isn't. I really like the logo though, so if you catch me in a mid-90s washing machine Sonic Youth shirt, mind your business. It's just about the logo, because the album, no, thank you. Okay, let's be a little bit nicer and talk about the band Slowdive, and I think they got a bad album, kind of. I'm gonna be a little bit nicer, like I said, and I think their most recent album, Everything Is Alive, I don't think it's bad, which is the whole point of this freaking video, so I'm really just lying to your face right now in terms of the title and what I'm about to say. Everything else I didn't lie. I guess I'm not really a fan of the direction that they went into, and I know they're in the, you know, later stages of their career, and you know, they're older. That's pretty much what that means. But I know I've said good things about this album, and when it came out, I thought it was very interesting because it was kind of different. When you think of Slowdive, you think of shoegaze and stuff like that. But the more I listen to it, the more I'm just like, man, this album really isn't like hitting like that for me. And it does feel like an album, or sound like an album that you would hear in like the coffee shop, and you know, it's just this 80s kind of The Cure influence type of album. And you know, I love The Cure, but Slowdive, you think it would sound a little bit more different, but it just sounded, I don't know, not like a cover band, but something to that magnitude. I don't know if I'm gonna put this in the video, but I talked a lot about it already, so I'm gonna stop. I don't think it's a bad album. I want to get that out the way. I know this whole video is about bad albums, but I just really didn't like the direction with it, and you know, I guess they had a lot of fun from my vibe check. But yeah, that's enough of that album. Let's move on to the band Deftones and their album Saturday Night Wrist. Deftones, to me, has always been consistent in terms of their melodies and the way that they create melodies. Maybe it's just Chino Moreno in the lab cooking every time, but he always has at least a couple melodies within an album where it's like, man, that's crazy. That was very, very, very phenomenal. And I think there's some moments in there on this album, but not as much as usual. And to be honest, I feel like this album has some of their weakest riffs, some of their just weaker instrumentals, and that's kind of really all it is for me. I mean, I really did like the song Up, Up, Down, Down, Left, Right, A, B, Select, Start. They kind of tapped into their hum influence, and the instrumental on that song was just crazy. I loved that song. Really is my favorite part about this album, but I don't think that is enough to carry, you know, the whole weight of this album. And it just, man. But like I said, man, you can't have every album be phenomenal and just great. It's really hard to do that for any band in existence. And like I said, man, whenever I talk about these albums, it's not like it's the worst thing I've ever heard, but it's just probably the weakest stuff from these bands that I really appreciate and, you know, not idolize, but love listening to. I hope that message doesn't get lost within this whole video. Otherwise, you guys are just going to think I'm a big hater, which, you know what? Sometimes I am, but I feel like I'm being very objective in this video. Let me know in the comments, am I being objective or am I being whack? But yeah, Saturday Night Wrist, bad album. Next and final band, Helmet, Size Matters. Helmet, one of my favorite bands ever in existence, just from, you know what, everything, man. Love the riffs. I love the songwriting sometimes. And to be truthful with you, I could have picked their most recent album, but I feel like my opinion can change maybe in the future. Yeah, if you haven't listened to that, I didn't like it at all, but I'm gonna talk about Size Matters. This album, you know, like I said, Helmet has a ton of riffs. They always have riffs. That's their strongest department within the band, but there's much more of a melodic approach in the songs, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but it really weighed down my whole point of view of this album when I listened to it. And I'm not saying that I need every Helmet song to be screaming and having heavy riffs and heavy drums, loud chuggy bass. The melodies with the singing just doesn't hit for me. Yeah, man, it really weighs down the album a ton, and I'm not really that type of person that's like, man, you got to stick to your roots. You got to stick to what you know in your formula, because I think bands need to, you know, just expand their sound whenever years go by, and you don't want to be that band that just sounds the same all the time. So I understand the approach. I understand it a lot. It just felt a lot more, you know, melody based and just a little bit different, and that's fine. Very fine. I personally just didn't find it entertaining, and That sucks, man, because I really like Helmet. I love Helmet, like I said. I almost picked Aftertaste from like 97, but after listening to that over and over again, I don't know what I was thinking. There's a bunch of riffs on there. I really thought that I was going to put that on my list, but you know, I fact checked and listened and listened and listened to make sure that my opinion is right, or I can be confident in my opinion. I love Helmet. I love most of these bands. What band do I not like on here? Oh, Oasis. Yeah, I just talked about how I literally fell out of love with that band. But other than that, everybody else, I adore those bands. That pretty much wraps up this video. I know a lot of you guys can pick out a bad album from a great band or a bad album from your favorite band. Whatever it is, drop it down below in the comments. Let me know, man. Let me know if I'm right or wrong. We all have different opinions. You can discuss and, you know, just do whatever you want. Hopefully you guys don't hate me at all at the end of this video, but if you do, thanks for watching anyways. That's all I got. Like and subscribe. Keep the music alive. Bad albums by great bands happens all the time. Do you guys like the setup? Little outro, little facts, little skateboard.